Sorry about that, guys. I know I said 4:30. It's 4:31. Um, my dad's bike broke down, so we had to sort that out, but it's all good. Streaming should still be able to proceed as normal. Um, I wanted to stream today because I ended up deleting the live stream yesterday and wanted to make up for it, just in case you guys really liked that live stream and you wanted to give it another try or something along those lines. I'm out of breath because I was helping my mom move some things in the backyard. Hope that's not a bad omen of me drinking too much water. But not much has changed since yesterday. I did think something that might be fun to do for a future video is talk about games that I beat on hard mode, because I'm typically not much of a hard mode kind of guy. I typically will start out a game on easy and then work my way up to the hardest difficulty. Um, so yeah, I'm not much of a masochist when it comes to video games, but when I do beat a game on the hardest difficulty, I really commit to it. And it ends up making me feel more proud of my achievements because it's so very infrequent when I do that? I think the game that I'm the most proud of beating on the hardest difficulty was RZ, the Jewel of Faramore. That was a parody of the CDI Zelda games, and the hardest difficulty was called one-shot mode, and you had to beat it without dying. Now, there are a couple of little helper things that you can do, like you'll keep all the items that you acquired so that can help you at least get a little bit further. But there are still certain areas in that game where you have to have genuine skill even with all the cheats. So, like, for example, when you go into the area where you face the final battle, there's a lot of lava on the ground. And if you hit that lava, you got to start all over again. And considering that it's a parody of hated Zelda games, you can imagine that on the hardest difficulty, those enemy patterns can sometimes be a real piece of work. Um, my therapist has been teaching me lately to be more willing to be proud of my achievements, but at the same time the Bible talks about the virtue of humility. So it's been a struggle to find that balance of okay, how much is bragging versus how much is acknowledging that God has been good in my life, and how much can I acknowledge hey, God has given me this gift of not being terrible at Arzet the Jewel of Faramore. But I also think that sometimes people's victories can be inspiring to people. Like, I imagine if you look up, the Olympics or, a person who had a special needs, that person might have trained really hard for that gold medal. And then you're like, wow, if that person with that disability was able to do that much, then surely I can do something along those lines. So I think there's a fine balance. Pride is when it's all about you, and inspiration is when it's all about the world. So if you're using your accomplishments and your achievements to bolster yourself and no one else, then that's where I would probably say it's pride. But if you're like, I want to inspire people and I want to say, hey, you might think that you're, I don't know, crippled or slow of speech or disabled or something that's holding you back. And yet you can still do great things. I mean, look at Tony Melendez. He was born without arms. And so he learned how to play the guitar with his feet. And I think a lot of people have been really inspired by his example. So that's what I'm hoping to do when I talk about my achievements, is to give people inspiration that maybe they're not the best at video games, but it takes time to get good at video games. And maybe like being good at certain video games isn't a good life lesson, but who knows? Maybe there could be someone who's training for something else. And maybe they'll look at, I don't know, the story of how I came in first place in Tetris 99. Maybe they'll see that as when I made my original review of Tetris 99, I think the highest I had come at that point was 11th place. And I said, "Oh, I highly doubt I'll ever be able to make it to like third place." And it took a very long time for me to really perfect my Tetris skills. And I think that's also helped me with being able to like train my niece to play video games because I recently taught her how to play Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And, obviously, since she's not really used to playing video games on her own, I had to toggle like the smart steering and auto acceleration and easy computers. And I think because I had experience with like beating every track on 200cc, that was able to help me to help her. And every time she would lose, she'd get this super dejected look on her face. But then I'd say, "Hey, listen to me. Sometimes, in order for us to win, we first have to lose so that we can get better." And the more she kept losing, the more she learned from her mistakes. She started to say, "Oh, I need to press left on this turn." And she eventually got to the point where she played on Wii Rainbow Road, which is the last course of the Booster Course Pass, and she beat it. She came in first place. Yes, you could say it's easy computers. Yes, she had smart steering, but She's she also consistently lost when she first started playing. She would usually come in like 10th or 11th place. And so you have to have at least some level of skill. And then I said, just you wait. Eventually, you'll get even better, and then you'll be able to take off the smart steering and you'll be able to play on the harder difficulties. And I don't think I would have been able to teach her all that stuff if I didn't already acknowledge the hard work and determination that it took me to get good at stuff. And I think that if we have hard work and determination in hobbies, it can inspire us to have hard work and determination towards more holy, like more overtly holy goals, I should say. Like when I first started out this channel, I never thought I would get beyond 100 subscribers. And now I have 6,549, I believe. Yes, the number has been plummeting lately, but I would say that the first 700 that I had was a genuine it took practice to get where I am today. It took me being able to examine my mistakes and say, "Okay, that video didn't do too great. Let's learn from that. Let's make a better video this time." And now I've gotten to the point where some of my friends have mistaken me as a professional YouTuber, even though I highly doubt I'm anywhere close to that level. But if you apply that same reasoning to like other stuff that's like, I don't know, going on a mission trip or a Catholic conference, it does take time and mistakes to be able to succeed at those. I made quite a lot of mistakes on my first couple of mission trips. And as much as I glorify how great those trips are, I'm not going to pretend that any of them were perfect. Probably the closest to being perfect was the most recent one I went on, the one where I got my miraculous healing. But at the same time, like, if you thought I was just sitting around and letting all these holy things happen, you probably weren't paying attention to all my stories. In every single mission trip I went on, except for one, I had to do, I wouldn't say grueling, but like hard-ish work projects. Like my first mission trip, I worked at a daycare center and I also helped to paint and prime a gym wall. And I feel like my experiences with talking to my teammates and getting along with them really helped me to talk and get along with my teammates the following mission trip. Admittedly, it's hard to look back on that next mission trip because one of my teammates ended up being a convicted pedophile later along the line. So it makes me question everything he's ever said to me. But I felt more confident and I felt more like we can actually do this. And we did. On our I think it was either our second or our third day. We got to the house and we worked on it for 10 minutes and then we were already finished. And the camp was furious at us, saying like, "Why did you come back to home base? You're not supposed to come back until we tell you to go." And we said, "We were done in 10 minutes. What the heck are we supposed to do next?" And I think had this been my first mission trip, because I did actually, on my very first mission trip, I had a panic attack the very first day. And so I only worked for half a day. But since I had learned from that mistake, then I didn't have a panic attack on my second mission trip. And so learning from that behavior allowed us to do good in fixing the neighbor's house. And then the second house we worked on after we were done with the 10-minute one, she made each of us these handmade cards. She let us swim in her pool. She even had like spare swimsuits because we weren't expecting that. And I think I think those kinds of lessons really helped us to realize that us doing good on those projects was a result of us failing in the past, or at least for me. And so I've started to look at my achievements less so about bragging rights and more so about, can I apply this to what God likes? I remember when I first started playing Super Mario Brothers 35. I thought that it was so hard because I've never been terrific at the first Super Mario Brothers. I was pretty good when I was a kid, but I would always struggle at the Bowser's Castle levels. And at first, it seemed like Super Mario Brothers 35 was this insurmountable obstacle. But then I started learning patterns and I started learning, oh, if you jump on top of enemies, that gives you more time. And eventually I started coming in first place quite a lot. And so applying that to God when it came to stuff like chaperoning, I would think about the mistakes that I made at like the first couple of conferences I chaperoned. And then I'd say, okay, well, let's do something different this time. And then that led to a lot of testimony saying, "Thank you, Paul, for being able to change my life and to be able to help me out with these problems that I was facing." And again, I don't think that would have been possible if I downplayed my achievements. If I said, "Oh, well, God is good and I am not. I'm just this poor pathetic human being." I think God wants us to be at least somewhat proud of our achievements. Obviously not to the level of being prideful, but there is the Bible verse where he says, "Don't just put your light under a bushel basket, but like let it shine." He said, "A city that's on top of a hill can't be hidden." So clearly, if we weren't meant to like make a difference and have people notice us, I think God would have said something along the lines of, "Consider yourselves dirty rags, and you are absolutely pathetic." But no, if anything, he also said the parable of the talents. And in that parable, he said, "I gave you 5 talents, and you went and made more talents." Notice how in the parable, the person who gave the talents is meant to represent God, and the people he's referring to in the parable are meant to represent us. Typically, you don't really see that in Jesus's parables. Well, I guess more than you would think. But I don't know, there's something different about it. Like, in this case, God gave the servant the talents. The servant then said, I made 5 more talents for you. And then the master said, I thank you for using the gift that I gave you to go and do more goodness. Enter into the joy of your master. I don't think he would have said, enter into the joy of your master if he wasn't happy with us. There's other verses where, Jesus is talking to the people on his right at the end of time, and he says, well done, my good and faithful servants. And then what does he proceed to tell them? He says, I was hungry, you gave me food. Now, Jesus is all powerful and almighty, and nothing is outside of his reach. So, if he really, really wanted to, he could have gotten himself food. He could have just snapped his fingers and made food appear out of thin air. But what did he say instead? He said, you gave me food. I was thirsty. You gave me a drink. You loved people. And that is why you are allowed into the kingdom of God. And I think that's what it ultimately boils down to is if you're going to think about your achievements, apply it to changing other people because you never know how something you think is insignificant could end up being exactly what people need. And again, if you look at that same story that Jesus tells, the righteous are really confused. They're like, I don't remember ever seeing you hungry. And he said, because you did it to other people, you did it to me. We have no clue how much our actions influence other people, or even if they're helping God. For all we know, that time that we, I don't know, cleaned up for someone, that might have had some kind of a quantum effect on Jesus. Like maybe every time we say sorry for our sins, that gave Jesus just a tiny little bit of relief when he was on the cross. Who knows? But the fact that it's a possibility, the fact that our lives could not only change other people's, but the creator of the universe's suffering was minimalized. Who knows? And again, I could be completely wrong on this whole minimizing Jesus' suffering deal. But what if I'm not? What if I'm right? If that's the case, then we should be trying to do more good things. And I think realizing that even Jesus himself had the agony in the garden. He didn't just walk into his crucifixion. He took the time to cry and to ask for help. And it said the angels ministered to him. And so that got me thinking. I think when we are trying to chase some kind of accomplishment, I think a lot of us, like, we go for this, like, perfect record. Like, oh, I want to beat this game without a single character dying. But we have to realize that even the creator of the universe wasn't able to completely forego the easy road to the cross. It was a journey. It involved suffering even before he got on the cross. It's why I think Jesus probably had a really great time at the Last Supper because that food was going to last him the rest of his life. If I'm not mistaken, I don't even know if Jesus had any more food after that Last Supper. Yes, it said angels came and ministered to him in the garden, but what does that mean? We don't know. Probably one of my biggest missed opportunities in The Chosen, if I'm being honest. Like, yes, there are some things that happen in the Garden of Gethsemane in The Chosen that you that weren't explicitly said in the Bible, but at the same time, You can infer that it could have happened. It also says they ministered to him when he was in the desert. And I think if we were to juxtapose the two verses with each other, what was one of the first things that the gospel writers said about Jesus' condition when he was in the desert? It said he was famished. It didn't say he was hot, didn't say he was exhausted or tired or lonely. It said he was hungry. It took one of his physical bodily needs, and it was after the devil tempted him that it said the angels came and ministered to him. And it's interesting that the temptation that Jesus first received was turn these stones into bread. So if the angels gave him food, then the real question would be, are we impatient to receive God's aid? Are we willing to take it easy and just say, let's go for instant gratification, rather than saying sometimes the journey is where it's at? Maybe in Jesus's human nature, he wanted to give us an example for our human nature. Well, we don't really have any other nature, honestly. Um, he wanted us to be able to say, if there is an easy way out of your suffering that is not going to lead to making people happy and furthering the cause, then don't take it. I'm trying to think if there's a real life example where I took the easy way out. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but bottom line is, I don't think Jesus calls all of us to be like these horrible, scourged, awful sufferers. There are plenty of saints that lived ordinary lives, and they were recognized not for their amazing accomplishments and their great deeds, but just for trying their best to help others and live a holy life. And I feel like we often think that in order to be a saint, we have to like put ashes on our food, and we have to wear all these rags, and we have to beg for money, and we have to sleep on the floor. And that may be true for some people. St. Francis certainly took some extreme measures with his life. But sometimes I think the internal struggles are what really makes someone a saint. Because in my opinion, I feel like, in my experience, and I could be wrong about this, maybe it's different for you guys. I think Satan attacks the most at our thoughts and our feelings. You're not going to see the devil dressed up as like a bully on the street or like a sex trafficker. Like, sure, he could take that guy's, but I think the true form the devil takes is our own thoughts. This idea that we are these wretched, terrible pieces of work, and we've committed these terrible, awful sins, and God is just so disgusted with us that why the heck would God want you to enter heaven? You absolute wretch. Compared to the perfection of me, you are nothing. Consider this. When Jesus was dying on the cross, he had two thieves on either side of him. And what you have to remember about crucifixion is that it was the highest level of punishment at that time period. And from what I've heard, there really hasn't been a form of suffering that has surpassed crucifixion since then. And this thief flat out admitted that he had done some horrible things, which by that time period, it would have probably been something along the lines of like murder or adultery or something very, very extreme. I'm sure that the other thief probably thought he was beyond God's saving because he deserved to be on the cross. He was this terrible, horrible person. And the thief said, I hope you'll still remember me despite my mistakes. And Jesus said, you'll be with me in paradise today. And that's what I think the devil tries to do. Is in this scenario, the devil was the person who said, yeah, you're no good. You deserve to be on that cross. You're a terrible person. You couldn't resist the bite of that forbidden fruit. But when you're hearing God's voice, like obviously God doesn't want us to sin, but he doesn't dwell on our sins as much as you would think he does. God is the type of person that he wants to forgive us so much that I think we underestimate his forgiveness. And I myself have had several amazing experiences where I've really felt like some of the best moments of my life have been moments of encouragement, not of putting down. Hey, these people need your help. Hey, I think I need you to do this action so that it can be of service. Because think about this logically. If you really love someone, like you're unconditionally, abashedly in love with someone, are you really going to be constantly cutting that person down? Like if you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, are you going to constantly say, "Oh my gosh, you piece of work. You're absolutely terrible and I don't want anything to do with you." No. You're going to say, "I see beyond the flaws. And even though you're not perfect, I'm still willing to commit myself to you." Think about how much greater God's love is than that. God says, I know the absolute depths of your heart. I know every single impure thought you've ever thought. I know every single sin. I know every single struggle you have. And yet, I'm not going to harp on it. I'm going to point out where you've pleased me. But I think a lot of us don't want to hear what we've done that's good. I think a lot of us are so intent on being penitent and repentant. And again, repentance is good. But what's even better is acknowledging when God has given us an ability to make a difference and we don't try to downplay it. We say, "Thank you, Lord, for giving me an opportunity to make other people happier." Personally, whenever I think about this idea that, um, like, why are we on this earth? I personally know why I'm on this earth because I was very blessed to have God flat out tell me through the words of my sister, but I can't think of a single other person who has that luxury. But if what God said to me was any indication, then the real reason we're on this earth is it's a constant journey of making sure that we're this giant family in heaven. When I think of the people that I'm the most excited to talk to in heaven, obviously Jesus is number one. But if I had to pick my number two, it would probably be my family. I have six miscarried siblings. And sometimes it's really hard to think I could have had a family of 10, but I only have a family of four. Well, family of six if you count my parents. But if God is this quantum being that is outside of time and space, and my siblings, my six siblings that were miscarried, were able to have some kind of awareness of what was going on in this earth, who knows? Maybe they observed some of my actions and that like helped them to enjoy themselves more in heaven. Maybe all the times that I've been able to talk to people and make a difference in their lives at all these conferences, maybe that'll make for a better reunion in heaven. Hello, hey girl. Glad you could make it. I am so sorry that I had to start early. Um, I know it is a treat because I was so ashamed that I had to delete my stream yesterday that I just said I need to make another one right away because that's just unfair to all of you guys. But the reason why I had to start early is because I got a text from my sister. Where? Oh, my mom took my phone. That's why. I got a text from my sister. She'd be saying she'd be coming home in a half hour, and I wanted the stream to be at least somewhat long. Like if I had started it now, it would probably have only been a half hour. So that I I may not have said something inappropriate, but I still like I trusted all of you that actually spoke up. But what's to say that the people who didn't, the people who were just listening, that's what I was worried about. Well, I'm not worried anymore. That's why I'm glad that I can stream today. Is now I know don't talk about my ex. Talk about something else. I do hope you're able to watch the replay of this stream after this is over because while I was waiting for people to show up, I was talking about achievements and what that means in terms of like helping people. And I think it's really good if we are the types of people that don't like to brag, but we also need to realize that there's a certain form of holy bragging. No, that's what I'm saying is after the stream is over, if you can watch the replay, because obviously it'll be uploaded on my channel. I think you'll really be inspired by how I've come to these realizations. But anyway, that's enough about me. What about you, hey girl? Any cool things that have happened since yesterday? Any good news? Anything really? I've just been talking for the past half hour. Now it's your turn. You've been working very hard. Tomorrow you have to work too. You know what? I used to have a really hard job. I used to be a janitor. I was a janitor for 3 years and 3 months to be exact. It's harder than you would think. Like scrubbing the floors with the mop, there's quite a lot of friction on the mop. And then like kneeling down to get the lower parts of the machines. It could be pretty grueling. You clean houses part time. Very nice. Good on you for taking Monday off. That's great. But yeah, I was laid off from that job this past May. But yet at the same time, I don't really feel bad about it. Mopping and sweating and swearing. Well, I don't have enough good Bible verses to say like why you shouldn't swear. But I do know that I don't think I'd ever want to use profanity just for the sake of like there are people that get uncomfortable just hearing certain things. Like even if it's not a swear word, like for example, you say the names of a private part and people might be like, "Ew, don't say that word." So, I think that could potentially apply to profanity. That's just my personal opinion though. I'd have to do more research on it. But that's one reason why I don't swear. Yeah. Yeah, I have noticed that like when girls swear, it's like kind of unexpected. I think it's because when I was growing up, there was way more of this emphasis on girls being very dainty. Like I didn't live in a very progressive society. I didn't live in a time period where girls tried to be like these super powerful, I can do whatever a man can do um type of scenarios. I was put in scenarios where like girls liked to play with Barbies and boys, if they played with Barbies, they like to make them fight like they were Super Smash Brothers characters. Well, you know what? We all slip up. We all have our moments. I've I don't want to say this was profanity, but I said something pretty interesting when I was mad at my ex one time. I don't know if you guys want to hear it, but um, it definitely surprised everyone in the room because they're like, "You, Paul? You of all people? I would never have expected that to come from you." Right? No more ex talk. Right? How's my day been going? My day's been going pretty good. Um, I got to sleep in. That was very nice. I really enjoyed reading your comment on my video. It was nice to. get to know like more about your friend circle. So that was great to wake up to. Then there was someone on another YouTube video that said just keep doing what you love, and that was nice to get some encouragement to not always just chase trends, which I'm not much of a chase trend I'm not much of a trend chaser. Oh, thank you, hey girl. I really appreciate the pep talk. I think I think you were there when I said that this month marks exactly 10 years since I got into depression. And one of the things that I kept saying the most when I was in depression was, "You utter failure, you wretch. How could you have made so many mistakes in your life?" And I think deep down inside, that's why I gave such a long pep talk before you showed up. Is I want to save people from having to suffer as I suffered when I was in depression. And so now I want to be of um more proud of myself. Yeah, well, I may be out of depression, but it is hard not to be down on myself. I think it's because I know so much about like the Bible and the catechism that it can make me feel like I'm more accountable because like I know better. Whereas someone who say had only heard of Jesus yesterday, I would be way more lenient on that person. More about you from the Bible? Could you rephrase that? I'm not sure I understand the question. But you are correct. Nobody is perfect. Not even my best friends are perfect. Oh, learn more from you about the Bible. Sorry, I had a dyslexia moment. I read it the other way around. I thought it said learn more about you from the Bible. Okay, gotcha. More from you about the Bible. Okay. Where'd you want to start? Like, did you want to know about Jesus or the prophets or the creation? Personally, I would recommend starting with Jesus, but if there's something that you find is more pressing, then let me know and I'll see what I can do. Oh, I don't blame you. If you read the Bible just by yourself, I can 100% guarantee you're just not going to get it. I always tell people if they're going to start reading the Bible without a commentary or without like a guide, start with Matthew. I feel like the Gospel of Matthew is just a good place to start because one of the first things that Jesus starts talking about in that book is he does the Sermon on the Mount and he has the Beatitudes and he's talking about like blessed are you if you're mourning for you will be comforted, and he's talking about all these marginalized people in society, and he's saying blessed are you when you're suffering, and then he has like a whole bunch of these rules about like don't do this, don't do that. But then you realize that he's actually like, it seems like he's saying a lot of don't do this, but what he's actually saying is help more people like this. Because he would often say, like in the Old Testament, this is what the law said, but in this new covenant, now I am perfecting the love that God was trying to talk about before. All right, I've been talking enough. What was your specific question that you wanted to know about the Bible? And hey, if I don't answer it here, I keep saying this over and over again, feel free to email me. I'm totally cool with that. Because that's the thing. I'll stop myself if you have a specific question, but one thing I'll say right now is Jesus, the people that he argued with the most in the New Testament were the Pharisees. And the Pharisees were appointed people that God chose to be teachers of the law. They were people that read through the entire Bible at Jesus's time, what was the Bible, and they were meant to tell the people this is what God meant. Because, like you, people were confused. What does God mean by that? Is he a cruel God? And the Pharisees were the interpreters. And even Jesus said, they sit on Moses' seat. So do whatever they tell you, but don't do what they do. Because in their personal lives, they were thinking too hard about the ritualistic part of the law, but they weren't thinking about the parts of the law that talked about compassion and loving your neighbor. They got too focused on the bits where it said, like, make sure that you tithe this much of your income. but they weren't focused on stuff like in the old law, it did say love your neighbor as yourself. But if you're constantly saying you were in mortal sin because you dared to lift up a bag of wheat on the Sabbath day, Jesus is like, why? What about the love part of the Bible? Are you completely forgetting all that talk? In fact, something that I like to tell my confirmation students, because they're required, not confirmation students, the students in my Sunday school class, is they're trying to memorize the Ten Commandments. And I tell them the easy way to remember the Ten Commandments is the first three commandments are about loving God, and the remaining seven are about loving other people. And yes, to the average atheist, it probably sounds like a bunch of thou shalt nots. But what it actually is here's how you can love people more. By saying, thou shalt not commit adultery. Sure, it sounds like it's like, ooh, you're a terrible person if you commit adultery. But if you think about it from the perspective of the other person, it's saying, respect other people, be loyal, have a commitment to your partners and to your friends. So if you take it from the opposite, like if there's something I shouldn't be doing, what should I do instead? I mean, honestly, I could rewrite the 10 commandments to all be positive stuff. Like, you shall not steal. In other words, you shall be thankful for what is yours. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife. You shall be grateful that your neighbor has found a good spouse. Because again, back then, women really didn't know how to read. So a lot of times, God would use like words directed at men. Nowadays, that's what the magisterium is for, to clarify. Sometimes when you love others, you can show tough love. Yes. Oh, Jesus showed a heck of a lot of tough love. Um, he often told his disciples, you have such little faith. And what happened to all of his disciples? All of them except for Judas ended up dying for their faith. And I think Peter ended up writing at least two or three books in the New Testament. And then he ended up being crucified for the sake of the faith. So, yes, he would say, you, oh, you of little faith, why do you doubt? And then later they proved themselves to become really good people. So yeah, he he was willing to tell people like, yeah, you weren't doing so great there. And who knows? For all we know, all those times that he was yelling at the Pharisees and saying, "Woe to you, you hypocrites." Maybe they changed after that passage. Pretty sure there's actually a passage where it says that there was a Pharisee who was following Jesus in secret. For all we know, that Pharisee could have been one of the people that he said, "You are a whitewashed tomb and you're full of skulls and dead things. If your face is as small as a mustard." Oh, it's funny you bring that up, hey girl, because I went on a mission trip where the leaders of the camp told the group leaders that they were supposed to pass each person a mustard seed. And I kid you not, it was so small that when it was dropped into the palm of my hand, I couldn't even feel it drop. I couldn't even feel it on my hand. I was like, you could have just dropped air on my hand for all I know. One of the adult leaders had such bad eyesight that she said, I need to take off my glasses just to be able to see this because this is like insanely small. So, like, I would probably say, like, if you type in a period at the end of a sentence, like, that is how big a mustard seed is. And so Jesus is saying, even if you, I guess an example of mustard seed faith would be, even if you, even the tiniest bit believe that something good could happen, something good will happen. We just don't always expect the results. I don't know if I told you this, but when I was miraculously healed, I actually did not ask for healing on my back and shoulders. That's true, yeah. Or already has happened, yeah. I actually asked for two things when I kissed that piece of cloth. I said, Lord, I would like it if it was something to do with my ex, but we're not allowed to talk about that right now. So let's just say that didn't happen. And then I also asked if I could be better at recognizing people's faces because that's the one thing that my memory tends to be really bad at is remembering what people look like. That didn't happen either. I've had my fair share of, "I'm sorry, do I know you?" And that person's like, "Oh yeah, we've met several times." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm just not good at recognizing people by faces." In fact, I've actually introduced myself to my sister on a few occasions because my face memory is so bad. But what he did instead was he healed what he knew I needed. The fact that I just took that sign of faith of just like, okay, if you say that that's Jesus's clothes, I'm just going to do it. Not trying to logic my way through it. Just said, okay, bring it on. And that's often what Jesus would say to people that he healed. In fact, a lot of the people that he healed weren't even practicing Jews at the time. There was the Samaritan woman. Samaritans were the mortal enemies of the Jews. They were pagans. And she was the first person that Jesus flat out said, "I am the Messiah" to. So consider what an honor that is, that of all the people he would reveal his mission to, it would be a pagan, someone who didn't even worship the God that she was speaking to. He healed a Roman centurion, which, mind you, the Romans were the ones that crucified him. They were also pagans, and they very much did not agree with the Jewish law. But this one Roman said, "I know that you are so powerful that you can just speak, and my servant will be healed." And then Jesus said, "I've seen so much faith in you, a pagan, that I haven't even found God's chosen people, the ones who were given the law and have seen all these miracles, even they don't have faith like you." So, because he took that extra effort, I think that's why God healed him. Something similar happened to you. You were once approached by a prayer lady who said, "Can I pray for you?" I said, "Pray that I get money." I was broke at the time. She said, "I will pray for God's will first." That's, yeah. Pretty sure I prayed something like that too after I was laid off. And I don't want to say exactly what happened, but now I have quite a lot of money. Not like stupid rich, but I have enough to get by with my current needs. Um, for God's will. You didn't get money, but something good and unexpected happened that was good in the long term. Exactly. You're really getting it, hey girl. Honestly, I think the approach that you've shown in these live streams from the little bit that I know about you, honestly, you could give some Catholics a run for their money. Cause like for someone who's not like you haven't committed to Catholicism, you really know your stuff. And I think that's something to be proud of. Cause believe me, I actually just got a comment earlier this morning. I eventually ended up blocking this person. Oh, good. You know what? Just in case you have trouble, because someone else came into my live stream and wanted to email me, and he couldn't find it. So I'll just say it right here, since it's no secret. There's my email. You can send it. You can send something to me as soon as the stream's done. I'm a really fast responder, especially now that I've been laid off. So you'll never have to wait more than 24 hours for a response, unless if like I don't know, I'm on vacation. But I hardly ever take vacations, so I don't think you'll ever have to wait for me too long. What was I going to say? I forgot what I was going to say. But it's a good kind of distraction. Um, I have quite a lot of free time, unfortunately, but I feel like I used to be ashamed of all the free time that I had, thinking like, shouldn't I be working more? But then I got to thinking, what if the fact that I have so much free time allows me to have more time to be there for my friends when they need me? What if, I mean, I do have a job, it's just a volunteer job at the moment. And I feel like I wouldn't have been able to have that kind of persistent service if I still had my job. Like now, if the youth minister says, Now, if the youth minister says, "Hey, guess what? I need your help on Monday," I can be like, "Okay, go for it." You sometimes doubt that I'm an ISTJ. I don't blame you. I have been mistyped as every single type except for the ISTP and the ENTP. The thing about ISFJs that I've learned is that their secondary function is extrovert feeling. So it means that they tend to like feel other people's emotions as though it's their own, and they try to like create harmony between like multiple viewpoints. And I try to do that, but um it's definitely not natural. Like empathy is not really my strong suit. Additionally, ISFJs have introverted thinking in the tertiary, which that means that they use what's called a logical framework, where they say like, okay, if this is true, then that means that is true. But because it's in the tertiary, which means the third function, it means that it takes them a really long time to come to those conclusions. So, like, you would say, like, "Why do you believe this is true?" They'll be like, let me get back to you on that so I can think about it." Do you do I strike you as the type of person who needs time to get out my thoughts? Or do you think I'm the type of person that can just say whatever is on my mind instantly? Personally, I don't think that makes sense, especially because I feel like I'm constantly getting mad at people when they use an internal logical framework. Like a lot of times when I'm around INFJs, I'll either say it out loud or um I will be thinking it. I'll say, cut it out with that made up logic. Just give me the facts. Because ISTJs use extroverted thinking, which is they like efficiency, they like results. Yeah, straightforward. ISFJs are not straightforward. According to the Linda Barron system, they're considered informative, which means that they tend to give either too much or too little information. They like to leave everything up to like your decision. They don't like telling people what to do, and sometimes they can be a bit vague or like give like a lot of like I didn't ask for that, but you told me anyway kind of things, and I just don't relate to that at all. I only just recently learned about Linda Barron's, and at first I thought it was a bunch of baloney. But then the more I started observing, like, okay, let's take this friend of mine who is this type and let's put the Linda Barons to the test. Then I started thinking, oh, it actually does have some merits to it. Hello, Kevin. Glad you could make it. Anything cool been happening since yesterday? You missed you missed quite a lot of talking about the Bible. So you might want to catch up on the replay. But ooh, came out of the gym. Very nice. I'm going to the gym on Monday. Blocked your ex to focus on yourself. Well, I hope that I hope that you feel good after that, cuz I know that I wouldn't have the courage to. Yeah, that's right. Hey girl says today is the. Well, I said that about my ex. I don't care if you guys talk about yours. I just don't want to talk about mine cuz I feel like I said too much. And I know you guys have said that I didn't, but you never know. Hey, you know what? I don't want anyone to feel forced to say or do anything that you don't want to do in this stream. No, that's okay. You know what? Some people like to forget that X has ever happened. And if that's your thing, then I won't stop you. But, what was I going to say? I forgot my train of thought once again. My therapist says that, I have, oh, the painting right there? That is, from my friend Kara. She drew that for me. I think it was either on my birthday or like as a as a friend verse because Kara and I were the types of people that we get along so well that we like to celebrate the day that we met, and we call it a friend versary. We coined that term before Facebook did, by the way. And we would like because we would always hear about couples saying, um we would hear about couples saying like, "Oh, hey, it's my anniversary." And I'd be like, "Well, I'm not in a relationship, but I remember the day that I became friends with someone, so let's call it a friendversary." All right. Since you said you don't like plot armor in films and games, in Resident Evil 8, there was a twist that the main character was always dead for the entirety of Resident Evil 7. He moves on to heaven at the end of Resident. I don't remember saying I didn't like plot armor. That might have been Hey Girl that said that. Either that or I said it in a different way and I just didn't call it plot armor. Um but I would say that in the Catholic faith we have a process called purgatory, which means like yes, Jesus died for our sins. So it's not like we're paying a price. Oh, that I like death in characters. That's what I meant. Yes. Okay, now I get what you're saying. Um, no, I think what you said, assuming I'm understanding you correctly, um, if a character goes to heaven, that's good. But if like one of my least favorite examples of survival in movies is Lord of the Rings. Like Gandalf just happens to come back as Gandalf the White. I hated that. Absolutely hated it. Is purgatory so the way that I've heard purgatory described is again, Jesus paid the price for our sins, but we need to be purged of our desire for sin in order to enter heaven because even the slightest bit of desire would make us not perfect. So it's more of a cleansing than it is suffering. Because a lot of people think, oh, you Catholics are making the sacrifice of the cross redundant. So it's not taking over the cross. It's just saying, okay, maybe you have a couple of lingering sins. And due to the crucifixion, now we are able to remove them. So it's more like taking a shower, really. Like maybe it hurts a bit more than a shower, but it's it's not this doom and gloom that I think a lot of people call it. Yeah, no, I agree. Like Gandalf kind of just appeared, or like um games where like they said, oh well, this person didn't technically get shot in the heart. They got shot on the other side of the chest, so that's why they're technically still alive. Like commit to deaths, people. You do not like martyrdom. So the term martyr in the Catholic faith means someone who dies for their faith. So like they don't pick up others as crosses. Where does it say that in the Bible? I don't remember that one. So what you have to remember about martyrs in the Bible is that there's is who forgiven? The person in Resident Evil? I haven't played Resident Evil, so I don't know. But I will say, one thing I do know about purgatory is once you're in purgatory, you're guaranteed to get to heaven eventually. We just don't know how long it'll take. But like there's no way to fail purgatory. Like you can't like do wrong like a test. It's an automatic A plus. It's just you might take a little bit longer to get the A plus. Like, say you have 25 years worth of venial sins that you haven't confessed. You just need to be purified. Is that an adequate way of explaining it? Because I know, like, as someone who was born Catholic, a lot of this is second nature. So hopefully I'm explaining it in enough newbie terms. Although, I am an assistant teacher for fourth and fifth graders, and unless you guys are lying to me, I'm pretty sure you're older than fourth and fifth grade. Hey girl, I think what you might have been referring to is it says, take up your cross and follow me. So, what that means is don't be ashamed of suffering because sometimes suffering can bring good results. Like, I suffered on my very first mission trip, but boy, am I happy that I suffered because that led to one of the greatest moments of my life. Definitely know it better. Definitely know what better. The Bible than you guys? I mean, yes, that's true, but I wouldn't say I know it word for word. Like, I haven't read the entire Bible in quite a while. I tend to focus on the Gospels because, again, that's what I always tell people. Start with the Gospels, especially Matthew. Yeah, there are some things that I would say that the average person could read the Bible and they could learn some pretty decent lessons, like when Jesus says, "Love your neighbor, pray for those who persecute you." Like, sure, you may not believe in prayer, but you could take it as, hmm, maybe it would be a good idea to love my enemy. Because I remember when I first heard that passage, I started to be nicer to the people at the park that were mean to me. And after a few months, those people at the park stopped being mean to me and they became my friends. So you never know. Even if you take it from an atheistic point of view, y- I don't know, it could lead to good results along the way. Your favorite saint is Saint Dymphna, saint of mental health. Mine is Saint Joseph, which is my confirmation saint. Um, I really liked how he is such a good role model for like chastity and doing God's will and not necessarily expecting recognition because there's not a single word of Saint Joseph's that was recorded in the Bible, but yet he's considered the second greatest saint next to the Blessed Mother. So for someone that never spoke in the Bible, um, he got such a high honor. Yeah, John is the type of guy that he writes very poetically. Pretty sure he's an INFJ because he uses a lot of symbolism. You're about to drive? Okay, well, thanks for showing up, Kevin. Hope you were able to enjoy yourself. Thank you. You take care too. But John is the type of book that I feel like so many people misunderstand it. That's why, again, you get a Catholic and a Protestant talking about John 6, and you're going to have vastly different opinions because the Protestant because so what John 6 is, it's the passage where Jesus just finished multiplying bread to feed 4,000 people. And so the people came after him saying, "What is so he started off not so good? What do you mean by that?" Because I don't think I ever heard anything about St. John's life. But yeah, John 6, that's the passage where the people they're hungry for more bread. And Jesus says, "The bread that I will give you is my flesh." And the people are really confused about that. And they say, "How can this man give us his flesh to eat?" And rather than clarifying, Jesus says, and again, I'm referring to the Greek because the New Testament was written in Greek, and there's a lot of nuance that is missing when you translate it into English. In the Greek, he starts out by saying, "Eat my flesh," but there's different words for eat in Greek. So the word he used at first was this general idea of consuming. So, like, you can read a book, like that kind of consuming. Like, you're not literally eating the book, but you're reading the words and you're taking it in. So that's the word he uses at first. And then they're still confused. So then he changes the word so that he says, "You must gnaw on my flesh. You must tear into it. You must chew it." And that's when they walked away from him. And the Protestants will say it's all symbolic, that it means, oh, just remember Jesus's words and take in his actions. And Catholics believe that because of that added intensity in the Greek, it means that the Eucharist was the real deal. And again, from personal experience, I've been healed of lactose intolerance from the Eucharist. I've been healed of my back and shoulders from Eucharistic adoration. Was he not proud and angry before he became the apostle? I think you're thinking of St. Paul. He was the one that was murdering people. John, he was actually considered the beloved apostle, depending on the translation that you read. Um, he was often referred to as the disciple Jesus loved. And of all the apostles, he was the only one that was not martyred. When they tried to martyr him, he survived. So then they exiled him to the island of Patmos. and then he wrote the book of Revelation. How before that, how was he? I don't know. They don't really say anything about his life before he became a follower. I think there's one passage where it said like Jesus came across brothers that were fishing. So he probably was just an ordinary guy that didn't have a very good education. And so he became a fisherman to scrape by. And then Jesus said, "Follow me." And he just said, "Okay." And he left the boat and he started to become a disciple. But that's what I love about watching The Chosen is you really wonder like these guys are the people that Jesus chose to be his followers? Like some of these are horrible sinners. And the Bible even talks about like how there were quite a few times where fiery and angry and non-believer, that was St. Paul, yes. St. Paul murdered Christians. He was a Pharisee too. So very much not following the commandments there. Um, but then, as he was on his way to Damascus, he was struck blind. But before he was struck blind, he saw an image of Jesus, and Jesus said, "I am Jesus, the one you persecuted." Yes, Paul like me, but he wasn't named Paul, he was named Saul. And then God changed his name to Paul, which, if I'm not mistaken, I think the word Paul literally means small, but I don't know what the word Saul means, so that would be funny. But yes, I'm pretty sure that's why I was named Paul, was after him. But yeah, so Jesus said, "You are persecuting me because you are persecuting these holy people." And so he was struck blind. And then once he was baptized, his sight was restored. And then he went to Jesus's disciples and he said, "I would like to be a disciple." And so then they initiated him as an apostle. And the difference between an apostle and a disciple, it's pretty hard to miss. But basically, um, a disciple just means someone who actively wanted to learn from Jesus's example. Like Jesus wasn't the only rabbi of his time. There were plenty of rabbis that said a lot of similar things that Jesus did. They would say, "Come, take my teachings upon you and I will teach you to be a better person." 12 apostles, that's right. So the apostles were like disciple plus. So they would often say, like, we want to be the bishops and we want to be the leaders of the church. The disciples were just like, "Oh, okay, I want to follow your teachings, but I don't necessarily want to be on the administrative side of it." So it was the 12 apostles that were the first bishops, and then they passed down their authority onto their disciples, and then they passed down their authority, and that's how we have Pope Leo and his current circle of bishops. Is it's all just this continuous passing down of authority. Kind of like how the presidency works now that I think about it. So yeah, you could consider the Pope to be the president of the Catholic Church. Um, but yes, we are all called to be disciples, but we're not all called to be apostles. I personally feel like I wouldn't be very good as an apostle. I'm not good at administration. I'm not good at organizing big events. I'm more so of get me to the big event and then I'll talk and I'll share my stories and hopefully that brings people closer to Jesus. But you asked me to like make the phone calls to get the teenagers to come. I'm like, "Oh, heck no." Heck no. I like talking to my friends on the phone, but I'm not going to arrange events on the phone. Oh, by the way, hey girl, since I know you like looking at my t-shirt collection, I thought that you'd get a kick out of this one because it's based on Skyward Sword. Plus, once I started talking about Jesus at the beginning of this stream, I noticed that it was in the shape of a triangle. So it would be like Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Skyward Sword, yeah. Um, I like Skyward Sword quite a lot. I don't love it. I certainly think it's one of the weaker 3D Zelda games, but I like it better than Wind Waker. That's a pretty unpopular opinion, I know. Let's see, what is my tier list of Zelda games? Tears of the Kingdom would be number one, then Breath of the Wild, then Twilight Princess, then probably A Link Between Worlds, Majora's Mask, um, Skyward Sword, Ocarina of Time, and then Wind Waker at dead last. Not a big fan. Or no, that was That was just Zelda games in general. Sorry, I forgot that you don't know much about video games. So this T-shirt is based off of The Legend of Zelda: Skyward Sword. And the reason why Link is holding up his sword is because he's asking the power of the goddess to come down on his sword and to make his sword more powerful. Honestly, Skyward Sword's story has a lot of really cool parallels to Jesus, which I don't think were intentional, but if you know what I'm talking about, there are some pretty powerful moments where it's like, ooh, that's one of the most profound moments in the entire Zelda series. But no, to go slower, my favorite video game is The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. My second favorite video game is The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. And then all those other names were names of other Zelda games that I liked. I just, in the moment, I forgot that you weren't much of a gamer. So I apologize for that. Um, what was I going to say? I think a lot of stories have parallels. They're all same parallels: good versus evil, search for self. Yeah. I mean, technically, you could probably take any story and make it like a parallel to Christianity. And there are Bible verses that warn against that. But I think that there are more good parallels than bad ones. Although I will say that most people that I talk to that I will see parallels in, they will usually say, I never would have considered it like that. Like on my second mission trip, I was with a group of crying girls and I started talking about Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. And I won't spoil it in case you haven't read it. But there was a scene in there where Harry was having some doubts. And I related that to like our doubts that God is actually good, or maybe we don't think he exists. And like maybe we're wondering why, if he loves us so much, why does he make us go through it? But by the end of the book, Harry understands why answers were kept from him. And he says, now I get it. It was all worth it. And I said, that is exactly how we as disciples are. If young me was told ahead of time what I would have to go through, I probably wouldn't have done it. But because God kept just enough from me, I had the strength to push through. Search for truth. That is most important. Yeah, I would probably agree with that. Um, I would also say search for goodness, but like people have different definitions of goodness. So if you know the truth, then you can know what kind of goodness to search for. Like, there are some truths that other people believe that might say that the ends justify the means. Like, if you want to help the poor, then go steal from a bank. Whereas in the Catholic Church, they would say that stealing from a bank is always evil. You can't justify it just by saying, I'm going to go help the poor. And so I would just say, like, think about who you're hurting, really. Like Machiavelli, I think I know what you're talking about. That's like where someone comes across as like this really benevolent figure, but is actually deep down inside plotting something sinister. So basically, Dumbledore. Yeah, Dumbledore is a pretty Machiavellian person. But I've never actually read that book that you're referencing. But I do know what the Machiavellian archetype is. The prince? I don't know what the prince is. If you say don't bother, yeah, I won't bother. I tend to not like books that have too much symbolism. Um, that's why I love Harry Potter so much, is because you could technically read it at face value and still get just as much enjoyment out of it as someone that looks for the symbolism. Like when I first read Harry Potter, I had no clue what any of it meant in terms of like parallels to Christianity. And then I read this book, I think it was called like Looking for God in Harry Potter. And once I saw those examples, I said, ooh, now I actually want to look for symbolism. It bored you to tears? Oh man, that stinks. That's about how I felt with Lord of the Rings. Oh, Harry Potter is it gets less convoluted as it goes along, I would say. Like in the early books, you can clearly tell that she's writing to children. And so there's some pretty obvious plot holes, but for me personally, I'm okay with plot holes if there's at least an attempt to explain it. If there's no explanation, that's where I get annoyed. Like, sure, some of Rowling's explanations may be flimsy and like, okay, I have to suspend my disbelief to think that this is possible. You watched Lord of the Rings and loved it? Watching it, I can see why you'd love it. Reading it is the hard part. Because I really liked the Lord of the Rings movies. At least I used to. I don't know how I feel about them now, but then I read the books. The books were so slow and boring. It had so much missed potential too. Because I feel like Tolkien, I think, was probably an INTP, I think, where he couldn't commit to anything because that's the NPs for you. They're always jumping from idea to idea. Like he'd write, "Oh, well, why don't we start searching for the 13 rings?" So I was like, "Oh, I don't think that or I think that would be cool if there's more than just one ring." And then that adds a whole new dimension to the books. And I say, "Nah, let's not worry about it." Or like there was one moment where Sam thought Frodo was dead and I was like, "Yes, commit to the death." But no, turns out Frodo was just paralyzed. So that was annoying. The fact that you had the Fellowship of the Ring and only two people and that entire fellowship died during the journey, and one of them resurrected with no explanation, that annoyed the heck out of me. I was like, okay, four hobbits? Are you kidding me? How the heck did not one of these hobbits die? Like, they were walking into a volcano. Surely, like, the fire alone would have like burned their feet off. Oh, it does sound like plot armor. But the thing about Lord of the Rings that really drives me crazy is it's the kind of book that you can tell that there's meant to be this deeper symbolism to it, but I just don't catch any of it. Um, you could make the argument that Gandalf is supposed to be like Jesus, but I don't really think that that makes for compelling fiction if a character just resurrects. And I know that, how do I word this? That's not to say I'll never read a book where someone doesn't commit to a death, but they have to have a really, really good reason for it. Like, for example, in Harry Potter, it's revealed that Harry was able to survive an unblockable instant death curse because his mother died for him, and the power of love was what protected him from the curse. Like, that's cool. That Harry was able to cheat death because of someone else's sacrifice. And again, as the series progresses, there are more examples of that that are just mind blowing to me. I'm talking about like something like Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, where a character is like struck by lightning, and you even see the character like lose his head, and somehow the person is still alive after that lightning strike. Yeah, no, no, doesn't do it for me. Oh yeah, Harry Potter is full of moments like that. Like every single book has these profound scenes that talk about like love and mercy, and it makes me wonder why the people that don't like J.K. Rowling don't actually read her books. Because like especially like nearly everything that Dumbledore says is just like this a lot like it sounds cliche, but like actually putting into practice is like, more people should think like that. And I wish that there was some way that people could like compile all of Dumbledore's best quotes and like use those as a way of people trying to be better by learning from the example of some of the things that he says. Like, I think one thing he says is, "It is not our abilities that define who we are, it is our choices." There's another time where he says, "When you save someone, that creates an indelible mark between the two of you." And so, like, that's talking about the value of mercy. You like realism. However, in books and movies, the magic takes you out of the movies. I watched this movie with a friend called The Holdovers. The supposed boy, supposed, is it the chosen boy who was supposed to be 16, played by, yeah, yeah. I'm not the biggest fan of that either. That's why I really love the Harry Potter full cast audiobooks because they're trying to go for more age accurate portrayals. So, for example, I looked up the age of the actress who played Hermione in the first three books, and she just turned 12, as far as I can tell, or she's about to turn 12. And that's believable because Hermione was 11 at the start of the Harry Potter books. So it would make sense that a person who's playing someone between the ages of 11 and 13 would be 12 in real life. Like, that makes sense. And the person who plays Luna, I know that's a bit of a spoiler, so I won't say much, but the person that plays Luna in the audiobooks just turned, I think, like 20 this year. And Luna is 15 in the first book that she shows up in. I don't think someone's voice will change all that much between 15 and 19. So again, I'm willing to suspend my disbelief there. I mean, my voice certainly didn't change much when I was between 15 and 19, but I'm also a special case. My voice hardly changed at all. It's definitely deeper than it used to be, but not as much as most guys. I've definitely been very fortunate in that regard. I think it was actually the answer to prayer because I was about to go through puberty. I think I was like 11, and I just prayed so hard that my voice wouldn't change. And then once it came time for the cracking and all that stuff that boys usually go through, didn't happen. And every time people make fun of me, doesn't bother me because I say it was the answer to prayer, and that's all that matters. But what was I going to say? I do remember there was a time when I was a kid that there was this narrative that girls' voices didn't change at all, and I was just like, "That is utter baloney." Like, I know a girl in my class who's about 11 years old, and her voice is already lower than mine, and she's not even finished growing. So, clearly girls' voices change, they just don't usually go through the cracking that guys do. And even girls that I know of who still have high-pitched voices, I don't think they sound exactly like they did when they were kids. Like, if they did that, then I don't think anyone would take them seriously. And I think that's something that a lot of people make mistakes about is they take gender stereotypes and apply them as the absolutes. So, like, for example, there's this stereotype that if a if someone has long hair, that person must be a girl. You probably think that that's stupid, right? But you'd be surprised how many people have asked for my pronouns just because they see the hair. Um, Even when I've been swimming, people have asked if I was a girl. Which, mind you, I I had swim shorts on. I didn't have a shirt on, and people have still asked if I was a girl. So I think they were basing it off of the stereotype of girls have long hair, guys have short hair. And sometimes the voice has thrown people off. Like, I've had so many people call me ma'am on the phone just because they assume, like, even though I would say, "Hey, this is Paul," they would completely actually, I have an even funnier story. You used to have very short hair? Oh man, I would love to see a picture of that cuz for me personally, I don't really have a preference for hair on girls, but I do like it when they have short hair because it's a nice subversion. Let me tell you the funniest story of oh shoot, I just forgot it. Shoot. I had a really funny story about oh, I remember now. So I was on this stream where there was a lesbian girl and she would go on and on about how much she hated men. but yet she got along with me really, really well. And so we would have these really, um, I wouldn't say profound. I mean, it was just a stream, but like she would enjoy talking to me. And every time I would show up in the stream, she'd always say hi and she'd get all excited. And so one time I decided to challenge her on that perspective. And so she kept saying, like, oh my gosh, I hate men and all men are jerks and I'll never be attracted to them. And I just said, does that mean you think I'm a jerk? And she's like, "Oh my gosh, I never would have imagined you were a guy." And I was like, "And yet I said my name was Paul? So why did you think I was a girl then?" She's like, "Oh shoot, I must have thought you were a girl because you had long hair, even though I knew that Paul was a masculine name." So I officially proved that she does not hate all men because she just assumed that I was a girl. Yeah. So that's why I think people who claim to be lesbian or gay probably aren't as lesbian or gay as they think that they are. They just they just perceive what gender they think that they're attracted to. Your crush in high school was this girl who was basically like a tomboy. She didn't conform to the status quo, the most stereotypical white women are expected to meet. Yeah, no, I get along really well with tomboys. In fact, I've actually had one girl say to me like, "Paul, I I think you might have a crush on me." And I was like, "No, I don't have a crush on you. I just tend to really like it when girls play video games." Hello, Kevin. Welcome back. And good to see you too, Karen. Um you got any good news lately, Karen? Like I don't know, cool game that you're playing, movie coming out, excited for the Mario movie, anything like that. A tomboy is a term that means a girl who likes to do stuff that's stereotypically more so for guys. Like, back in the 80s, a tomboy would be like a girl who played video games because there was this myth that girls don't like video games. I used to believe that myth. I have since learned that that is very false. Actually, I know quite a lot of female gamers that play more masculine games than I do. That's good that you're a tomboy, hey girl. Yeah. We were just talking about how like I was misgendered by a lesbian girl who kept saying that she hated men. And then at one point I just said, "Do you hate me?" And I trapped her with that because she just perceived that I was a girl, and so therefore she perceived that I could be someone that she was attracted to. So this whole time she was enjoying being in the company of a guy, even though she claimed that she hated men. So that's why I started talking about that about tomboys. Not much. You did a little let's play for fun recently. Very, very nice. Very nice, Karen. You. What was the let's play about? You were mistyped by a lesbian by a lesbian. That's funny. Um, I'm trying to think. Do I know any lesbians in my life? I'm not sure. I know a lot of lesbian allies, but I don't think I know any people that are genuinely lesbians. You played Outrun on the Switch? I don't think I know what that is. Would you care to tell me about that? Because I'm normally the kind of guy that's really up to speed on Switch games. So if I haven't heard about it, probably something that's um, different genre than I play. You used to know a tomboy for 12 years. Interesting. Yeah, when I was in school, we didn't have a whole lot of tomboys. But one thing that I did like about when I was in school is that we tended to try to treat everyone the same. And it led to stuff like we would call all the female teachers sir, and like guys would play with like the dolls in the classroom, but like I said, the actual girls in my classroom would treat the dolls the way that they were supposed to be treated. But the guys would take the dolls and they'd fight each other with them. So yes, we would play with dolls, but we'd play like Super Smash Brothers with them. It's a remaster of an old classic iconic Sega racing game. Oh, proves a frame rate 16 by 9 upgrades. Oh, okay. Outrun. I might have to check that out, actually. Let me see if that's reasonably priced or if it has a physical version. Actually, I can look that up right now. Because I do like some of those old arcade racing games. Like, I reviewed a game called Cruisin' Blast quite a long time ago. Huh. Let's see. I'm not seeing it on the Switch. Let's see how much it is on the eShop. All right. Here we go. By the way, just in case you guys haven't seen my Switch 2, here you go. Don't believe it has a fit. Have I ever thought about doing a playthrough? I have done playthroughs on my channel, actually. I have a whole Let's Play of Super Mario 64. So you can go check that out. I tried doing one of Banjo-Kazooie, but I only got like a couple of views. And so I realized, yeah, I don't have the audience for Let's Plays. But if enough of you petition, now that I have over 6,000 subscribers, whereas back then I had like 500, maybe people like it more. I just have to be guaranteed that people will watch it. That's my problem. Cause like I said, I tried doing. Ooh, is this what you're talking about, Car and You? Sega Ages Outrun? Because that's what I'm seeing. It's only $8. Oh wow! Featuring motion controls, newly added music tracks. Came out in 2019. Huh? Huh? This doesn't look half bad. Yeah, Sega Ages. Okay. Huh? Doesn't say that there's a demo. All right. Why not? I've got a gift card. There you go. Just downloaded it. Ooh, that's a cool new animation. There you go. You can see it all the way on the left. It's downloading. Thank you, Karen. I really appreciate it. If I end up reviewing it, I will be sure to credit you in the review description. 2019 was trying to think what happened to me in 2019. Not much, but it was the year that Fire Emblem Three Houses came out. Trying to think, was there anything good in 2019 besides Three Houses? I can't remember anything. I always credit people that suggest video games. Like, I wouldn't have gotten into the Exit 8 if it hadn't been for Yubi Evie. Um, she sent me an email saying, Paul, I think you'd like the Exit 8. And I ended up loving it so much, I have a 100% run on it. Not only a 100% run, a 100% no mistakes run. So I hope you guys will check that out because it didn't do too well. Probably because I had a picture of a balding man on the cover. Because again, my artistic skills are as good as a toddler putting a twig in the sand. 2024, you repaired your relationship with your mother. Very nice. Very nice. It won't slip my mind because that's not a game I would have picked up on my own. Um, I'm definitely the type of guy that is very, very, very selective about what games I play. And it takes a lot for a viewer recommended game to be something that I'll go out and buy. In 2025, you had a bunch of spiritual awakenings and strange events. Ooh, I'd like to hear about those, assuming you didn't already tell me. Hey, I've blabbed about all my spiritual experiences, so you guys should be given permission to blab as well. What was I going to say? Um, but yeah, getting back to your question, Kevin, the few times that I have done Let's Plays, they've not gotten good views. And normally I don't care about views if it's something I'm passionate about. Like I have like pretty much every review I've done since like 2024. I um oh, you got to go, hey girl, or are you just getting dinner and watching at the same time? But either way, thank you so much for showing up. Thank you for being the first person here too. Yeah, you have a great one. But yeah, a couple of Let's Plays I've already done on my channel are I've done 100% perfect runs of Platform 8 and Exit 8. I did a full playthrough of Super Mario 64 and sort of a playthrough of Banjo-Kazooie, and Stanley Parable, but again, don't have the views. Is it a sin to enjoy horror games and films? I think it depends on what the horror is. Like, if it's going to influence you, like if you are playing a horror game and then that makes you feel like you want to take a chainsaw and cut people up, then I would say yes, it's definitely a sin. Or if the film is like promoting something that would be a sin, like I don't know, say there's a scene where I don't know, say there's porn in the horror film and that porn ends up causing you to lust, then I would say no, don't watch it. But I do know that there's quite a lot of gray areas when it comes to interactive media because I'm not sure how to describe it, but like media is meant to give a message. It's not meant to be an actual action. No, none of that, just for entertainment. Well, I haven't watched any of those, so I don't know what's in them. But I will say that if we're using the argument of should I watch this or read this because it's sinful? The Bible actually has a book that is basically a porn novel. It's called The Song of Songs. It has quite a lot of really intense imagery that would not be out of place in that kind of stuff. I will not repeat them here because I don't want to make any people fall out of their seats. But I think there is literally a verse where the girl says like, "Hey dude, come have sex with me right now." But like in this very poetic way that you can tell is like she's getting really into the nitty-gritty of like what it entails for her, a woman, to have sex with a man. And yet it's in the Bible. Why? Because it's trying to teach a greater message. And that's what I think people have trouble realizing in the Catholic Church is that they think, "Oh, well, um anything that has sex in it is automatically not good to watch." But what if it's like, I don't know, like it's a couple that devoted themselves to marriage and the sex is portrayed in such a way that it's not meant to elicit lust, but it's supposed to talk about like now that they waited, sex ended up being more pleasurable because they decided to be pure about it. Like there's a book in the Bible that I think does sex really well. It's called Tobit. It's only in the Catholic Bible, so make sure you're looking for the right one. This guy named Tobias goes on a journey to heal his dad from being pooped on by birds. Like the birds pooped in his eyes and it made him blind. So he went on a journey to go and try to find the cure. And along the way, he met this girl that apparently he was supposed to marry because I guess in Bible times there were arranged marriages. And every single time some other guy would try, yes, it is bird poop. That is a real book, the Bible. And every single time another guy had tried to sleep with this girl, the demon would always kill him. But this time, Tobias came along and he said, or before they were about to sleep together, they knelt down by the bed and they prayed to God, saying, "I hope that you will understand that I am taking this woman out of genuine love. I have preserved myself so that this marriage is appointed by you, and it is not out of lust, it is out of genuine purity." That is the kind of stuff that I would say is probably permissible. But then again, I don't watch a whole lot of movies, so who am I to judge? Like, I think there's only one movie I've ever seen that had a sex scene in it, but it didn't show any of the parts. It was just like you knew they were having sex, but it was like just at the right angle where you could like leave it up to your imagination. Ooh, someone just sent me an email. Oh, it's Nintendo saying I purchased that game. All right. Oh, you meant education purposes. Okay, yeah. No, I think there's also this myth that like Catholics aren't allowed to see nudity, but like there's plenty of nude art in Catholic churches. Like, I'm pretty sure there's a church called, uh, what is it called? Starts with a C. Um, that's okay. That's okay. I no, I get it. I get what you were trying to say. But the Sistine Chapel, that's what it's called. At one point, oh yeah, nudity is very common. Like, there's that, that picture where like the man tries to put his finger against God's. He and the woman are both naked in that picture. And Michelangelo, in a Catholic church, the Sistine Chapel, he painted a whole bunch of pictures of naked angels. And there were these extremist Catholics that said, "How dare you paint nudity? I want you to paint loincloths over the boys." And so then the Pope came in. I'm pretty sure it was Pope John Paul. I could be wrong, but one of the popes came into the church and he saw the loincloths and he ordered them to be taken off, saying, "Since when was nudity a sin? After all, we were all born naked. The first book of the Bible has two naked people running around. It's sexual nudity outside of marriage that is the problem." And so I have come to learn over time that the real definition of modesty is saving yourself for marriage. Like, I'm pretty sure no one would look at the statue of David and say that that's immodest. They would just say that's just how God made people. But if you were to look at a porn novel where that's like, it's designed to eroticize outside of marriage, then that would be where I would draw the line. Oh, my water's been gone for quite a while, so I'm surprised I've gone this long. But I think I'll call it here just because I did just notice my voice crack there, and I think it's almost time for dinner. But before I go, just want to make sure that, like, if you guys have any last questions, I am going to keep this one up, by the way, so you won't have to worry about me deleting it this time. But still, did you have any questions, any last comments before I head out? Looking at the thinker. Yeah, that's true. Thank you, Kevin. You take care as well. Thank you so much for showing up. Hope I enjoy Outrun. I probably will. We'll see. But thank you for recommending it to me, Karenu. Oh, I just remembered. I forgot to thank all the people that came in the last stream, so I'll do that this time. Thank you very much, Karenu, Kevin, and Hey Girl. Pretty sure those are the only people that showed up this time. Either that or there were invisible admirers. But thank you to all of you and all the people who didn't say anything. I appreciate all of you. And I hope that you all will have a wonderful day. Again, look through my back catalog, Kevin. Um, you'd be surprised how many projects that I have that people just haven't looked for. And until the next time, oh, thank you, Karnu. I appreciate it. And until the next time, remember to keep the faith, stay epic, and God bless. Bye.